Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host as usual. Obviously, welcome back to the show. Today's episode 151 of the show. And before we get started, we're going to do a little bit of house cleaning real quick because, well, you guys know we like to do it around here. And it only makes sense that we, do house cleaning because, well, we always do it. So why not? Why not? I do want to say thank you, though, for coming back and listening. It really does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly keep coming back and you keep downloading these episodes. You keep sharing these episodes, the normal shtick that you guys, whether you're listening to the audio version or you're watching the video version of this thing, that you guys constantly let me know how you guys feel because, well, you guys vote on the topics that I talk about. So you guys are much more, I'd say, intertwined in the discussion because you are the one, I wouldn't say leading it, but you're the ones providing the topics and what do you want me to talk about. And I really do appreciate that because, I can come up with as many topics as I want to talk about, but I always want to make it interactive so it makes it feel like you guys are part of the whole process, which you really are, whether you want to believe it or not. And that's what I greatly appreciate, is that how interactive you guys are with the whole process. And that really does mean a lot to me. I do also want to say thank you to the Patreon backers. You guys are great for supporting the show. Obviously, you can become a Patreon backer by clicking the links down below and choosing, which tier you prefer, whether it be the $2 tier or the $5 tier that you guys can pick and choose at your heart's content. Obviously, it's optional, so you don't have to do it. It's just a thing if you want to do it. So, you got to put options on the table. But I do also say thank you guys. We're almost close to 2,100 total downloads before the 2-year anniversary of the show. So hopefully we can get 2,100 before the 2-year anniversary. So let's see what we can pull off. But, I'll leave that to you guys. But I do want to say something at the very end, but we'll get to that at the very end. And yeah, I think it's better to save it towards the end. That's just my opinion, that it's better to save it towards the end. But let's get on today's episode because we do have a good amount of things to talk about. Primarily, we're going to be talking about the S21, the Galaxy S21 lineup that you guys voted on. You preferred the AirTags episode, which I'll be leaving a thing up there if you're watching the video version, so you can go watch that episode. But you guys preferred talking about AirTags first, and now we're doing the S21 lineup right now. And to be honest, when we think about the S21 lineup, the first thing that comes to my mind is, oh, this is happening. And it's something that I just didn't really expect, or, well, we knew it was happening. Like, if I'm being honest, John did tweet out when the exact dates were. And some people are like, John, you're crazy. This isn't going to happen. And then Samsung comes out and announces, well, these are the official dates. And that's what just, to me, it just kind of comes off as a feeling like nobody really cares about the S21 this year, specifically the S21 lineup. Like, I did like the S20. I really did. I like the S20 Ultra. I get it. It wasn't everybody's, cup of tea. If you could find the phone for I'd say reasonable price, then it made sense to buy it. Do I think it was worth the $1,400? Hell no. Like, I say that with a big emphasis on hell no. It was not worth it. I think it was one of those phones where it just didn't make sense to make it that much. You get what I'm saying? Like, it, in my mind, it just boggles me. Like, it just, like, it doesn't make much sense why the S20 Ultra, they thought it was a bad idea, or even the S20 pricing in general, that you start at $1,000 and then you go up from there. Like that screamed it was a bad idea. And it showed, because it didn't sell that well. Even the Note 20, like the Note 20 lineup wasn't the best either. Like, I still agree the Note 20 shouldn't have existed. On some levels, I think the S20 Ultra and the Note 20 Ultra should have been one phone, because if anything, the only phones that should have came out that year should have been the S20 FE, the S20 Plus, and then the Note. That really should have been the whole lineup. And it wasn't. Sadly, they went the direction they did, and here we are now with the S21 lineup, where there's definitely a lot of changes. And I don't want to go into specs. I don't want to go into that kind of territory, because I feel like that's not the fun part of the conversation. I don't feel like that's really helpful. It's not new information. It's not providing new insight in the matter, because all you're doing is just regurgitating specs. You're regurgitating what people have already said online. You're not really doing anything. I wouldn't say importance. I don't want to use that term, but I do want to say that you're not providing anything useful. Like, you're just regurgitating info that you could find hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of people saying the exact same thing. I'd rather have a discussion of what the S21 represents. And to me, it just represents Samsung being desperate. It represents I wouldn't say a lack of focus, but it just seems like them trying to course correct and fix a lot of issues that came with the S20 line, but at the same time also incorporating some bad things that we will talk about. And I think it's only fair, let's talk about the bad stuff. The fact that Samsung always likes to bully Apple, and they like to make jokes about Apple and things like that, when Apple does something controversial or something that the people in general or the community as a whole do not appreciate, Samsung's pretty quick to follow suit. And as a result, this is why there's been a lot of rumors and rumblings that the S20 or specifically the S21 line will not have a charger in the box. And a lot of people got mad about Apple doing this with the whole 12 lineup, that they started with the 12 and then they started to do that with all their older iPhones, that they just took the charger out of the box. They left you with a cable, but they took out the charger. Like, if you try to buy an iPhone 11 now, you won't have a charger. You try to buy a iPhone XR, won't have a charger. Like, you got what I'm saying? Like, they removed it from their current, because they're like, oh, we're trying to save the environment. And even then, I still question that heavily. I still question that, and I say that now, that I don't really believe it's something related to the environment. It's just them wanting you to buy their expensive chargers. That's really the name of the game. Like, Apple creates a problem and sells you the solution. That's essentially what always happens. And Samsung likes to follow suit. And this is where it's just very like, like, it makes you think, it makes you question, like, what is Samsung's rationale in this matter? Because why would you make fun of Apple? Which I get it. It's easy because, you know, the community is upset. You know, they're not happy about what Apple is doing. So Samsung just hops on the bandwagon, you know, just be like, well, we actually give you a charger in the box, or like, oh, we don't put notches on our phone. And then they proceed to do something stupid. And it's just like, it's just one of those instances where it's just like, really, guys, like, come on, like, we can do better here. And this is where I feel like the S20, or specifically the S21 lineup, it feels too confused. It feels desperate, because Samsung lost their number one spot in terms of manufacturing to Huawei overseas. So now they're trying to, you know, get it back by getting the jump start. Like, this is the first time we've seen a Samsung phone launch this early in the year. Normally it's usually around March in that area, but the fact that it's going to be the first, like, you know, flagship phone launching at the start of the year is kind of crazy, that we're starting with the S21s now. And there's also some rumbling saying that Samsung is going to remove the micro SD card slot from this lineup of phones, which in my opinion is kind of crappy. Like, that was one thing a lot of people really liked about having Samsung phones, was that you could have expandable storage. Like, they did this with the Note 20, they did this with the Note 10, where they got rid of the expansion slot, so you were just stuck with the base storage. Like, whatever you got in terms of storage, you were stuck with it. And I get it. Some people are like, well, Josh, nobody really uses above 128 or 256 or 512. So does it really matter to have it? And yes, in my opinion, it does matter because a lot of people like having that option. They like having, the option of putting in their own expandable memory. So say you just want to buy the base model, but you have this really big micro SD card lying around. So why wouldn't you want to use it? And it's just for storing photos. It's not like storing your apps and everything like that. Like, it's primarily doing its job. It's for photos. So that's what just bothers me, is that Samsung is being very stubborn. They're being very, I'd say, conflicted with a lot of their things. And this is very evident when we talk about the S21 Ultra, the fact that it's going to be including S Pen support. And this is where I think things kind of shift a little bit interesting throughout this year, because as you guys are aware, if you've been following Samsung phones, you know that there's always the S lineup at the start of the year and then the Note lineup at the end of the year, that the Note is always the culmination of the S20, or specifically the S lineup. Like, what worked, what didn't work, improve it, refine it, and then that's the Note. Like, the Note is always considered the phone to wait for if you really want what Samsung has to offer. And this year could be the year that we don't see a Note, because if it is true that the S21 Ultra is going to have S Pen support, granted, it won't be able to store the S Pen. You'll have to buy a special case that they'll sell you. But if it's true that it will support the S Pen, it makes you wonder, is the Note lineup dead? And a lot of people are worried about that, because a lot of people really like the Note. A lot of people like using it for signing documents or doing notes, or using it for class, for work, whatever you like to use it for. I know a lot of people like using it as a traditional phone because they're like, well, I like having the Note. I like having the best phone Samsung makes at the end of the year. And that's all fine and dandy. But yes, the Note has always been pushed as a productivity tool. It always has been. That's just how the Note has been presented, is a productivity tool first, and also being a good consumer product. But it's always been viewed as a productivity tool. And the fact that could be going away, because the S21 Ultra will basically do everything, the Note 21 Ultra would do, it's concerning. Like, we knew the Note was going to die eventually. Like, there was rumblings that it was going to happen with the Note 9. There was rumblings that it was going to happen with the Note 10. There was rumblings it was going to be with the Note 20. And this could be the year that we might not see the Note, or this might be the last Note ever made, and they just transition everything into making the Fold the new flagship, like, big tier phone that comes out at the end of the year. That the folding phones will just be the top tier option, that it will have S Pen support, it will have all the nice fancy features, that it will have everything you could possibly want, or specifically whatever Samsung can offer you that year. And this is where things are very interesting, especially when you look at the pricing scheme, that the S21 lineup is going to start cheaper, that the base model is going to use more of the approach that they did with the FE, where it starts at a much cheaper price, but gives you a lot of the features by using plastic mixed with glass. And yes, I know some people are like, well, Josh, I don't like my top tier smartphones with plastic. And while I do agree, because charging $1,000 for a plastic phone, in my opinion, is a no-go. I think that's just like, guys, come on. If you're charging me top tier money, I at least deserve top tier materials. Because whether you want to believe it or not, plastic is plastic. You can put as much fancy jargon as you want in front of it. It's still plastic, whether you agree or not. Like, it's plastic. Like, I don't think that belongs in a top tier option. And that's why I think even companies like Google, with the Pixel 5 at least, that yes, they realize, let's not try to compete on the hardware side. Let's make the best software experience, and at least hardware that works, that's reasonable, that makes sense, that works with our software. And Samsung figured out, hey, that worked, because the FE was a hit. A lot of people really liked buying the S20 FE. It's a really good phone, and I recommend it to a lot of people. And especially in that price range where it's competing with the Pixel 5, it's, competing with the OnePlus 8T, that it provides a lot of value. So the fact that Samsung realized that, hey, maybe starting the base S20 at $1,000 was not a good idea. And now it's going to be much cheaper. It'll probably be $100 off. Like, it's starting at $849 is what the rumbling is. But to me, this is going to be very interesting. This is going to be an interesting year for Samsung, because a lot of people don't really care about the S21 lineup. They really don't see a lot of benefit with this line. And yes, I think the Ultra, if they did, because they implemented the laser autofocusing that was implemented in the Note 20 Ultra, that a lot of those fixes to the camera system will be there. And that's what a lot of people like. And I think the S21 Ultra, if we look at it and everything is fine, we don't have any major issues like autofocusing issues with the camera or software bugs or performance issues, then yes, I do think we're going to see a very popular smartphone that could be in contention for the best smartphone of the year. Because the fact that this will be the first time that we see an S phone with S Pen support is going to be crazy. Granted, yes, it's not going to be stored in the phone because they just can't do that. There's not enough room for it. But the fact that they're going to make a custom case for it and kind of taking LG's approach with like the V60, the V50, and making like this special case that comes with, added accessories to make the phone experience even better. I think that's really cool that Samsung is making another case that will store the S Pen for you, and it'll be practical. It'll be a case to protect your phone, to carry it around in, and also store your S Pen. And I think that's really cool. But in my opinion, it just feels like the S21 lineup just doesn't make much sense. It just feels boring, uninspired, like no one really cares. Like, yeah, the phones look cool, but does anybody really care at this point? Like heck, there's nothing really that stands out to me that's just like, oh, I have to buy this, like, yes, the variable refresh rates is going to be cool. Like, specifically, it will only be on the Ultra because of course they're going to save all the amazing features for the Ultra because it's the Ultra. It's the big premium option they want you to buy. Like, they're trying to push you towards that option, more storage, more features and stuff like that. They want you to buy the Ultra. That's essentially the whole name of the game. But I wouldn't be surprised if the base S21 sells really well, if the smaller one, because that, I'd say, is the nice healthy balance in terms of smartphone sizes, that people really like that nice 6-inch or 6-inch to 6.1-inch phone. Like, that's why the iPhone 12 has sold really well. That's why the iPhone 11 has sold well. That's why the XR sold well. Heck, even the Pixel 5, a lot of people wanted an XL, but it picked the right size starting off. It picked an overall comfortable size that a lot of people like. I don't consider it too small. I don't consider it too big. I just feel like it's the right size. It was weird because I used to have an S20 Ultra, and to me, yeah, that phone was massive. That was the biggest phone I ever owned. And then getting a Pixel 5, it's like, yeah, this does feel a little bit smaller, but that's because my brain is accustomed to using this big phone. And to me, that is just where things are. That it doesn't feel like this is a very inspired year. Like, Samsung just feels like, in my opinion, this just feels like Samsung is trying to course correct. Like, they're trying to fix a lot of the issues that happened with the S20 lineup, that they want to undo a lot of that bad press that came with it, like starting off with ridiculous prices, to the S20 Ultra having all its issues, to the Note 20 Ultra. And specifically, the Note 20 was the main issue. A lot of people thought that phone shouldn't have existed. And yeah, they did do a lot of course correcting with the S20 FE. Like I said, that is the Samsung phone that I always like to recommend to people because it just makes sense. It doesn't, you get what I'm saying? Like, it makes sense. Like, this is the best value you can get. And it makes sense that it sold well because it was a really good phone. It was good for $700. It is one of the best phones you can buy. But we look at the S21, the S21 just feels like a little bit better than the FE. And it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic works because, the FE is still going to be on the market and it's going to compete with the A21. So, essentially the S21. That, to me, this is going to be crazy. This is going to be interesting. The charger thing is going to be dumb because I feel like this is just a trend that just doesn't make sense. Like, in my opinion, it doesn't. Like, some people say, let's see how Samsung tries to justify this, because Apple tried to justify it saying the environment and that we're doing this for the environment. We're trying to reduce waste. We're trying to remove as much footprint as we possibly can. Samsung, I don't really, if they try to pull the excuse with the environment, I'm going to call BS on it because we know it's not for the environment. we clearly know they're just doing this because that's what happens every time. The second Apple does something, everybody likes to copy it. And I just feel like this is a trend that, to be honest, shouldn't be copied. That's just my opinion. Is I don't see the point in copying this kind of trend. I don't see the benefit to this. It doesn't lead to anything good. But that's the reality of it, is when Apple does something, everybody will follow suit. And that's just the reality of it. Like, Apple is always considered the industry leader, that when they do something and they do it well and people really like it, then they go along with it. Like when the headphone jack got removed, like what happened? Phones started removing them. I get it. Samsung bullied Apple. They're like, oh, we have a headphone jack and we still have water resistance. But what did they do? They eventually removed it. And here we are. You know, the S10 lineup was the last phone to have a headphone jack, because then they got rid of it in the Note 10. S20 lineup, same thing. Didn't have a headphone jack. In my opinion, this is where I feel like some people just really need to stop trying to copy Apple. And, you know, you're industry leaders too. You're still top of the pack. Make your own decisions. Be unique. Don't just follow what Apple does, because whenever they do something, maybe 9 times out of 10, it may not be the right thing to do. So that's just my 2 cents on the matter. How do you guys feel about the S21 lineup? Do you guys actually care? Did you even know it was coming? Because the event's going to be January 14th. That is when we will see the Unpacked event. And so you guys can obviously go on Twitter. You can go on YouTube, wherever you want to watch the event. It's going to be live, so you guys can watch it. But how do you guys feel about it? You know, let me know in the comment section down below if you're watching the video version, or just hit me up on my social medias, or do whatever. Like, share this episode, like this episode, download it, do whatever you have to do. If you like what you saw today, if you're watching the video version, you can click the like, dislike button. You know, you guys can decide what you want to do. If you like what I talked about, if you don't like my viewpoint on it, then let me know. Leave a comment down below. You know, if you want to keep watching videos like this, you can hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, yada, yada, yada. You know, YouTube, how we all know this is how YouTube likes to function, that they don't like to support smaller creators that much. So any little piece of help is greatly appreciated, because as somebody once mentioned, YouTube doesn't like it when you talk bad about companies, you know, because yeah, you know, we gotta say nice things about these companies and not call them out on their BS or question their tactics. But you know, I'm just gonna tell you guys how it is. That's just how I am. Is I don't feel the need to, you know, circle jerk these companies or try to suck up to them, because I don't owe them anything, and neither do you. That's just the reality of it. Like, I don't need to like circle jerk these companies to get their attention. I don't. Like, if something seems stupid, I'm gonna tell them, hey, this is stupid. Like, that's just how things should be. But I love you guys to death. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Please continue to be safe, especially with all the people in DC, because, you know, what happened on January 6th was not the best. I'm just saying this right now. I'm not going to go into politics because, like I mentioned, I don't like talking about politics. I really don't. I like keeping the show and politics separate. But in my opinion, this just feels like it's something so big that it's just hard not to say something about it. And the only thing I will say is that what happened yesterday was not a good thing. Whether you want to agree with me or not, this was not a good thing. It was not a good look for our country. It is not a healthy representation of what we should stand for as a country, as a people, you know, as being the leaders of the free world. That was not a healthy example of, you know, of putting our best foot forward. And in my opinion, we should do better. But I'm not going to say that, oh, this is the way, or this is no. Like, we should strive to do better and have hope that things will get better, and have, I'd say, more open discussions, that we're not just going in, I'd say, you know, guns blazing, wanting to disprove everybody. That no, that we should engage in these kind of conversations in an open manner, with compassion, with love, to listen to all sides and not ignore somebody, but rather listen to everybody involved and find a middle ground, find a healthy middle ground that works for everybody. But that's just my 2 cents on the matter. I just wanted to say that I'm not going to go into, you know, politics, because in my opinion, I just don't like talking about that stuff. To me, it's just blah, you know, it's a mess. But in my opinion, what happened January 6th was not a good thing. That's just the reality. And I'll leave it at that. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Thank you guys for your time. I love you guys to death. Please continue to be safe. Have a wonderful weekend. Please continue to take care of everyone around you, because the world is still weird, and just take care of everyone around you. Be mindful, be respectful of everyone around you, show them love. And I thank you guys for everything. And I will see you guys next week with some next week's episodes. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.